With the passage of 60 years in the annals of history, the war is now a distant memory. Kunming today is characterized as a city demonstrating a rapid pace of modernization, where local residents have become accustomed to day-to-day changes. However, the American veterans visiting Kunming dozens of years after the war can no longer recognize this city where they had resided and which they had defended with their lives. However, stories of the Flying Tigers and of the Hump Road still abound among Kunming's local population. This is the #1 hostel of the U.S. Air Force Division stationed in Kunming. It is a living witness to the region's illustrious history. It is ordinary building used to house the AVG headquarters and was the soul of its operations. General Chennault, who was nicknamed by the Chinese General Flying Tiger, commanded his troops here.
He had a very rough-looking face, and I could understand why they called him Leatherface, because that's the appearances he gave, that he had a face of leather. You know, he was a school teacher at one time, and he taught us like a bunch of school children about the Japanese, the kind of airplanes they had, how they were trained, and even how they thought about their mission. And so we got all the information that he could give us, and then he sort of said to us, now you're on your own. You're in a fighter plane. You're the only pilot in the airplane, and that's it. So you now have to do the thing yourself.
Chennault had the intelligence that was valuable to us to describe the combat capabilities of the Japanese Zero versus this airplane. And that helped a lot.
On April 15, 1941, a confidential Sino-American agreement was signed. It stated that the U.S. would recruit Navy and Air Forces to create a so-called volunteer group bound for China. In return, China pledged to purchase U.S. aircraft vehicles under the Land-Lease Act. In that year, the American Volunteer Group was established, enlisting 115 pilots, hundreds of ground service personnel, 100 P-40 airplanes, and General Chennault at the helm. The AVG's main mission was to defend the Burma Road.
What really motivated people was the spirit of adventure.
I was so impressed with the Chinese people. I loved them. And I knew they needed help. I always wanted to get back to China. And I knew the best way to get back was in the medical field. And by being a doctor, it took too long. So I went into nursing to get back, and I got back that way.
That was great. I was quite young then. I was 19 when I got over there. And I always wanted to be a fighter pilot, so it was a great adventure for me to be over there and flying with the Flying Tigers and, you know, the people that have helped them to defend China. It was a very great experience for me.
December 20, 1941 is an unforgettable day for both AVG pilots and Kunming people. The AVG had its first engagement with the Japanese, downing 9 Japanese planes without suffering a single loss. The decisive victory brought great excitement to Kunming City.
So when we got back to Kunming Aerodrome after that engagement with the Japanese, everybody's all excited and saying, how many planes did you shoot down? And, you know, it was as if there was a big fight with 50 airplanes or 100 airplanes. No, there were 10 airplanes, but everybody was just as excited. And, of course, we said, no, this happened, that happened. And the upshot of the thing was that after everybody calmed down a little bit, and we got back to our stations where they started gassing up the airplanes and getting everything ready for another engagement and everything, the aide for General Chennault came over to our squadron and said, "You boys better start getting fixed up and looking pretty because the people are coming out from Kunming." And sure enough, we got out there outside of the alert house, and here came this parade down the road from Kunming, led by the mayor of Kunming and the other dignitaries, and all those pretty little girls with their hair cut like this. And they came, we all stood there, you know, we're only 22, 23 years old, and we're all embarrassed.